The 3DS is an amazing handheld. You do a quick search on YouTube and you're going to see like 1,000 videos on it, and these aren't necessarily videos that came out almost 15 years ago when the 3DS did. The videos then were also probably much less kind than the videos you're going to see today, complaining about the 3D effect and mostly about how expensive it was when it came out. Now the videos will praise the device for its wonderful library, its especially excellent modding ability, while still also complaining about how expensive it is. Some things just don't change, do they? But even at these inflated prices, the 3DS is still a beast of a machine. I've made a few videos on just how awesome the 3DS is and how much more awesome a modded 3DS is, and those have done great for the channel, so big thanks to anyone who's watched those and whoever's watching this now. The 3DS was a device I never thought I'd love. I completely ignored it when it released, and for the first 5 years of its life, I never thought about actually buying one, mostly because it was expensive to me even after the price drop. And it was a time when I didn't do a lot of gaming, though oddly it was before I had kids and should have had plenty of time for it. I don't know what happened, life's strange, okay? But having a kid and Pokemon Go coming out reignited a passion for Pokemon and prompted me to buy a 3DS, and luckily for me, the new 3DS XL was out by then. I've only ever worked on the original 3DS, never really played games on it, so I can't comment on how bad the 3D effect is on those, but I'm telling you, I'm one of those weirdos who kind of likes the 3D effect in the game. It just doesn't give me a headache, I guess, and for the most part, at least on the new 3DS, the 3D is well done. The eye tracking is quite impressive. I will say I'm currently playing through Metal Gear Solid 3D, thanks Cosmic Ray for that one, and it's a bit iffy in some points. The cutscenes look great and all, but sometimes with the grass and trees being all sorts of depth, it does throw off my eyes and strain them, so it's admittedly not always great. But still, even without the 3D-ness of the 3DS, it's a fantastic system. I mean, the library of games it can play natively, coupled with what it can do when modded, is amazing. It was a very sad day when Nintendo decided to shut down the eShop, but at the same time, it was a bit of a relief, at least for me. My thoughts on acquiring games through alternative means hinge mostly on if those games are available to purchase legitimately. And to me, that means, does the publisher or developer make anything from my purchase? And if they do, I'll gladly buy the game. And even still, I might want a physical copy of the game because I do have a little collection that I enjoy, but if it's been out of print for years, like every 3DS game at this point, then buying a physical copy from someone on eBay doesn't do anything for the developer. They don't make any money from that transaction, just the reseller makes money. So once the eShop shut down, any revenue developers got from selling their games on there disappeared. Even if I wanted to buy the game, pay the full price of $40, man, do we remember when that used to get you a full-fledged Pokemon game? And one without a whole bunch of glitches? Those were the days. Anyway, even if I wanted to buy a game, I couldn't. But if I want to play a game, I should be able to. If you don't want to let me buy it, that's more on you, Nintendo, than it is on me. I mean, there are still ways to download these games today, and there's no money being exchanged, so don't sit there and tell me it costs way too much for Nintendo to keep those servers open. It's not the issue. The reason is they wanted people to move away from the 3DS and pay their subscription service for the Switch, which I'm sure a lot of people did. Luckily, people are stubborn and the modding community is amazing. With a simple SD card, you can unlock so much potential that the 3DS can in some way stand toe-to-toe with the Switch, maybe even the Switch 2. Not in terms of graphics or power or anything like that, I'm not crazy, but in terms of pure enjoyment, it still holds strong. That's not to say the 3DS is perfect, far from it in fact. It has, well, three glaring issues that I see. The first is an issue that every 3DS has to deal with, and that's a very pixelated, low resolution, low contrast screen. The screens are terrible, okay? I think we can all admit that, and you can't really hide it. Now, lucky for me, my 3DS has an IPS top screen, but the bottom one is a TN screen. Nintendo, for some dumb cost-cutting reason, decided they were going to source their screens from different manufacturers, and in the process, those different manufacturers used different technologies. What the hell? So we, the lucky unsuspecting consumer, were left with just a luck of the draw chance of getting either IPS or TN screens. The difference being either marginal if you're someone who's not that picky, or astronomical if you're even a little picky. There are whole threads out there about people finding the holy grail of dual IPS screen 3DSs. I see a difference between my top and bottom screen, but I can't rightly say that it would affect my enjoyment if the top screen was also TN. The viewing angle's worse, sure, but I'm usually looking right at the screen when I'm playing, so okay. And the colors are supposed to be worse as well, which I think is a more legitimate concern. Whichever screen your 3DS has, it's still going to have the same low resolution display, which means we get these gnarly, jagged edges in almost anything. It just can't be helped. The 3DS screen is effectively 400 by 240 for the top and 320 by 240 for the bottom. On a 3.53-inch screen, that gives you a pixel density of 132 ppi. Now, mind you, the iPhone 4, yes, that ancient phone that came with the Retina display, had a pixel density of 326 ppi in 2010, like almost 3 times more pixels per inch. The PS Vita was 220 ppi. By all metrics and standard, the 3DS screen is a very low resolution for something that came out in 2011, and it's quite evident in almost every game. The second issue with the 3DS is one that hopefully not everyone experiences, but I fear one day will. It's that darn hinge, man. First of all, it's just a natural weak point for any and all hinged devices. And if there's one thing we all know about plastic is that as it ages, it likes to get brittle. You can go on eBay and see tons of examples of 3DSs with broken hinges for sale. And while you can do a reshell for that, that's about the only real fix to something like this. A broken hinge basically makes the thing unplayable. And a broken hinge isn't even the worst possibility of bad things this hinge can do. The way it's designed, there are 3 ribbon cables that run through that hinge connecting the speakers, screen, and camera to the motherboard. Over time, the hinge likes to wear down those ribbon cables, and if it should ever cut one of them, well, there's a good chance your 3DS will stop working. You'll try, and it'll light up for a second, and then pop, shut right off. If that happens, you have to replace whichever ribbon's been cut, which means tearing apart your 3DS, and believe you me, it's not a pretty picture. I don't like doing it. And the third issue is the 3DS is just plain underpowered at this point. The new 3DS rectified this slightly, doubling the CPU cores from 2 to 4 and increasing clock speed from a measly 268 MHz to a less measly 804 MHz. The boost in performance was mostly seen in loading speeds, but there were some games that would only run on the new 3DS. Not a lot of games, mind you, but some. Either way, the 3DS was underpowered when it came out, but that was sort of Nintendo's thing. The DS was underpowered compared to the PSP, the Wii severely underpowered compared to the 360 and PS3, and the Wii U would release a year later than the 3DS, and it too would be underpowered compared to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Underpowering their consoles was just Nintendo's MO in the later half of the 2000s and early 2010s while they tried to save hardware costs. It didn't hurt their sales, well, not too much. The DS and 3DS sold like crazy, as did the Wii. The Wii U, well, that was its own little failure. Still a great console. I just mentioned how I'm playing Metal Gear Solid 3D. That's a PS2 game, and it's pushing the limits of the 3DS pretty good. A PSP could almost play PS2 games, and the Vita was blowing it out of the water in terms of graphics and screen. I still really want one. Xenoblade Chronicles was a Wii game, and you needed the new 3DS to play a downscaled, low-resolution port of it. Still, Nintendo's always been great about giving us games that outshine their graphics, and personally, I think superior gameplay is more important than superior graphics. It feels like these days studios are putting more resources into improving hyper-realistic graphics over gameplay and story, and the result is just a bunch of good-looking games that are not that fun to play. With this, you have a bunch of okay-looking games that are a ton of fun to play. But where do we go from here? There are only 75.94 million 3DSs in the world, and truth be told, there are a lot less than that that are actually functional. Where does that leave us, the gamers who want to play 3DS games? Well, if you have a 3DS, lucky you, don't ever sell it. If you don't have one, you could go on eBay to try buying one. The prices have gone up a lot recently, especially for the new 3DS, but truth be told, they're not that ridiculous. With a little bit of luck and timing and patience, you can maybe snag one for less than $200, but you're probably looking at something around $250. This thing's held its value better than most watches. The condition might not be perfect, but these are going on 10 to 15 years old at this point, and unlike home consoles, these are thrown in backpacks, slipped into pockets. They see some wear and tear, and that's just unavoidable. But if you're into emulation, there are options available now and some really exciting ones on the horizon. Technically speaking, you can play 3DS games on a number of handhelds right now, or your computer even. They're not going to be the best way to play, usually. Don't know if you know this, but the 3DS has, well, two screens, and most devices have only one screen. So there's that limitation. And while there are plenty of games that barely use the bottom screen or that are completely playable without it, there are a lot where having to switch between the two screens or having them smushed together really makes it so it's not the best situation. Not to mention that the bottom screen is meant for touch inputs, and that's just not something every handheld emulator uses. But the options for dual screens is growing, both on the high end and thankfully the, well, upper low end. Starting with one of the more funky looking consoles, the Sugar One from 1X Player. This looks interesting. It almost looks to me like the Rotom Pokédex configuration. Not sure if that's what they were going for, but that's just what I see. Either way, it looks like a normal single screen handheld, but then bam, you flip around the screen on the back and you've got a 3DS looking configuration. Both screens are OLED, a 6-inch top screen, almost 4-inch bottom screen. It promises really good performance all around, but we'll have to wait and see just how powerful it is and how well it runs games. They even call out the hinge they've designed because, like I said, with any folding console, the hinge is very much a critical weak point. It's nice to see them addressing it. Hopefully that means they actually made something that's durable and can withstand all the twisting and turning you're gonna do with it. And it should be durable. It costs $700, which is a bit outrageous for a handheld and makes it like 3 times more expensive than a used 3DS. It better be good for that price, and it better play something beyond 3DS games really well. Whatever it can do, it's out of my price range right now. And if that price doesn't scare you, then maybe look at something like the Ayaneo Flip 1 SDS. Oh, the names are terrible. It's a full-fledged Windows device, which does put it in a different category than most Android-based or otherwise emulator handhelds. Still, it costs an eye-watering $1,300 if you back the product now. Yeah, I'm not about to pay that even if I can make an underperforming video on it. Just not happening. I'm sure it does wonderful and amazing things well beyond emulating a 3DS, but since we're talking about the 3DS right now, there are better options than that. Starting with a toned down version of the Flip 1S, the Pocket DS. It only runs Android, which is just fine for emulation, and costs only $400. Yeah, I don't think only costing $400 makes it all that tempting. I mean, people freaked out over the Switch 2 costing $450. I can't see how they go for this, even if it might be powerful enough to emulate Switch games. There are better options. Another option is a simple add-on for an already available device, the Retroid Dual Screen add-on. At only $70, this can connect to something like the Retroid Pocket 5 and effectively give you the 3DS you're looking for. It's not exactly the same form factor or portability of a 3DS, but it's certainly powerful enough to play your games, and if you already have something like the Retroid Pocket 5 or another compatible device, it's a cheap peripheral to up that DS experience and fill in a gap you might have. But then we come to the real reason for the video. When I made one of my previous videos talking about the best ways to play retro Pokemon, I included the 3DS games in that discussion because, well, the 3DS is effectively retro at this point. It's almost 15 years old after all. But when I made that video, I said the best way to play 3DS games was on a 3DS because there just weren't that many options out there for dual screens at the time, at least not ones priced on par with a 3DS. And then, wouldn't you know it, the day after I published it, or maybe the day before, Ion announces the Thor, and it starts at $250, which isn't all that much more than a used new 3DS. Now, what does something like this do better than the 3DS? It's going to have a better screen, that's for sure. Top screen, 6-inch OLED, 1080p screen, 120Hz refresh rate. Yes, yes, and yes. Much better across the board. Bottom screen, 3.92-inch 1080p with 60Hz refresh rate. Still a much better improvement over the 3DS bottom screen and their touch screens. and they reinforced the hinge. Games will look so much better, especially because emulators are able to upscale the assets, and there are sure to be texture packs that take games even beyond that. Oh, it just looks great, and I really, really want one. Maybe one day. It looks like a modern day 3DS, though missing a few things like a camera and, of course, the 3D capability. I think most people are willing to trade those out for better looking and smoother gameplay. Yes, even me, someone who enjoys the 3D-ness of the 3DS. What I'm not sure people are willing to trade out are the things the 3DS does that an emulator just can't. An emulator doesn't have the 3DS operating system. It's not got the same themes, the same layout, the same overall design of the system. It can play the games, sure, but it can't replicate the experience of a 3DS. I'm sure there are going to be, or there are custom firmware that can simulate it close enough, but I don't know that for sure. If you do, please let me know down below. That's one thing I love about making videos is learning so much from you guys. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with me. I really appreciate it. I'm not an expert, and I'm sure I'm sure that comes across without saying. But there are some things a 3DS does well that an emulator just can't do. It can't run older games natively, nor 3DS games natively. It can't connect to the 8 shop. It can't connect to Pokemon Bank or Home. You can't use PKSM on an emulator. There are limitations to just what this can do. Of course, there are limitations to what a 3DS can do, and that's the reality of technology. There's always a limitation. It's just how much limitation are you willing to accept? Figuring that used new 3DS will run about the same price as a new Iron Thor, which one with its own set of limitations would you choose? Obviously, if you had both, you'd be in a good spot. You could play your games with upscaled resolution using save states, fast forward, and all the wonderful things emulators bring to the table. And then you could turn around and inject that save data into your 3DS if you ever wanted additional functionality. Find a nice shiny in Omega Ruby and want to bring it home? You could do that. And that's amazing and hopefully the future that we're looking at. One might also hope that something like this, priced at this price point, would help put some downward pressure on 3DS prices. Having something of similar form factor capable of playing your DS, 3DS games with better resolution, clearer screens, brighter colors, better battery life, better controls, better customization will definitely give people another option when looking for ways to play 3DS, DS, and a whole bunch of other systems on one device. And if that means less people willing to pay the inflated prices of the 3DS because they don't have to, then hopefully we'll see the prices drop. It won't be dramatic, but even if they could get closer to around 200 on average, I think that's a great thing. Because if you only want to use a 3DS to do the few things an emulator handheld can't, the 2DS is a great cheap option to fill that role. I wouldn't want to play games on this, but it's great utility for transferring Pokemon or downloading games from the 8 shop to then move over to an emulator. I can't imagine it getting any better than this, but not long ago, the options for 3DS emulation were very limited. I mean, like a month ago. Who knows what these companies will come up with in a year? Thanks for watching, and I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who's watched any of my videos, who've commented, who've subscribed to the channel. I don't know if you can tell by the erratic upload schedule, but this is not my full-time gig. I don't have sponsors, I don't have merchandise or anything like that. Maybe one day in like a few years, but for now, I just make videos because I like to make videos. And I'm still trying to figure out just what sort of videos I like to make. I know there's a big retro handheld community out there, but honestly, I can't see myself making a video a week on every new handheld that comes out. I'm certainly not about to buy them all, but a few standouts, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I like actually playing the games and not just talking about the hardware we use to play the games. Part of why I started this channel was to push myself to actually play more games, so I do want to somehow incorporate that into my future videos. I guess what I'm trying to say, if I'm trying to say anything at all, is please let me know what you do and don't like about my videos and what you'd like to see more of in the future. I don't mind harsh comments, critiques. I see it all the time. I try to read every comment and respond to as many as I can, but please don't be offended if I miss yours. I appreciate every single one of you. I've learned so much from you, and I hope in return I've either entertained or enlightened you in some small way. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.